Welcome back to the channel. I hope you enjoy. My wife's infertility issues. We've been trying for a baby for 3 years now. My wife makes it clear that her greatest desire in life is to be a mother, so naturally it's been a stressful period in our lives. Sarah has been the perfect wife to me. She dotes on me, cheers me on, and keeps our sex life interesting. I adore her, and I'd do anything to make her happy. We've tried it all: fertility supplements, lifestyle changes, tracking ovulation, the whole 9 yards. A year ago, we tried IVF. It took, but like the rest of our attempts, it resulted in a miscarriage. Our family suggested adoption or surrogacy, but I told them I couldn't stand the thought of Sarah not being able to bring her own child into this world. Selfish, but I knew she felt the same. Though the miscarriages were hard on us, Sarah handled it like a champ. She didn't let infertility affect our marriage or the way she treated me. She even asked me to reduce my hours at work after she read some article about stress impacting sperm count. Then yesterday, Sarah came home from the doctor, beaming. "I'm pregnant. I don't want to get my hopes up, but I am almost 3 months along." I have to say, it came as quite a surprise, considering we had taken some time off from sex to relieve the pressure, and she had shown zero signs. Sarah was ecstatic. This pregnancy lasted over a month longer than any other I had in the last year. "Finally, it's worked. Must have been that weekend in Cabo," she winked. She kissed me sweetly on the lips. That night, when she was sound asleep, I gently stroked her face. "Sarah, you awake?" No response. Good. The sleeping pills had finally kicked in. I crept into the bathroom. I hate this part. You see, I never wanted children, but Sarah treated me so well, and by the time we had that discussion, I was head over heels for her. Plus, it has been so lovely having her dote on me our entire relationship. I knew that would change once a baby came into the picture. I guess they mean it when they say to take Plan B within 3 days after the deed. But we were on vacation and I forgot to bring my supply with me. Who would have guessed that she was overflowing with fertility? I should have been more careful after the last time I slipped up, because the alternative was so much worse. I grabbed the misoprostol and gently fed it down her throat. I prayed that it would still work this far along. I sat watching her for the next 3 hours. When cramping finally started, she shot out of bed and ran into the bathroom. "Mark!" she screamed. I followed her in, watching the blood pour down her leg. "It's happening again." Her face fell into her hands as she wept. I breathed a sigh of relief. Every prediction from my psychic turned out to be true. Listen, I'm not normally into supernatural stuff, but I was drinking with my buddies when we stumbled into a psychic offering readings for half off. Why the hell not? The old lady laid her cards carefully in front of her. Her eyes widened. "There will be significant change in your life. It will impact you financially." I walked out, disappointed that I didn't find her as amusing as I wished. 3 days later, I was laid off. I had to get a temporary position at the local deli, much different than my well-paying job. My wife had to take on more hours just to keep up with the bills. 2 weeks later, I was walking around town. I didn't even realize I had made my way over to the psychic. but soon enough I was sitting across from her again as she shuffled. She looked at me, this time her eyes stretched even wider. There will be loss in your life. There will be great sadness. A week later, my mom died, and I took it hard. I couldn't get out of bed for weeks. Eventually, the deli had to let me go. My wife tried to be patient, but I could tell resentment brewed inside her. It was all becoming too coincidental. I headed back over to the psychic. Last time, I promised myself. You will make a mistake that will cost you a great deal. 24 hours later, I backed into our neighbor's Mercedes. My wife blew up at me. How could you be so careless? I caved, and the next day I was back at her table. My heart raced as the expression quickly changed on her face. You cannot trust those closest to you. Your well-being is at risk. That evening I came home, surprised to see my wife sitting at the table with a glass of wine. We never drink on weekdays, I cocked my head. I know, but it's been tough lately. Here, take it. I grabbed the glass from her hand, but paused as it touched my lips. A voice echoed in my head. You cannot trust those closest to you. Your well-being is at risk. My eyes narrowed. Why don't you try it first? I said, handing the glass back to her. No, that's yours. I got it for you. Come on, try it. She was a little too eager. My heart sank. I grabbed the bottle from the table and swung, hitting my wife square on the cheek. I followed her as she crumbled onto the floor, striking her again and again, pulverizing her face until it was unrecognizable. I gathered myself and rushed back to the psychic. My wife tried to kill me. I had to end her life. Please tell me what happens next. She stared at me blankly, a look of shock on her face. Tell me. She looked sheepish. I don't know what to say. The readings, they're all made up. The police academy was not like what I expected. My father has been a police officer for 30 years. He's the most decorated officer in our county. Even as a child, I knew I wanted to follow in his footsteps. We didn't have a great relationship, and part of me thought that taking this path would make him proud. It's brutal. You have to have a stone-cold heart with the shit you see, he told me when I brought the idea up. I could tell he doubted me. I knew he thought I was too sensitive, but I was determined. When I was 22, I enrolled in the police academy. My father still had his reservations, but I insisted. He couldn't prevent me from trying. I passed the written and physical exam with flying colors, but my old dad wasn't impressed. I still had to prove to him that I was cut out for this. Finally, the day came. It was my first day of field training, a ride-along with my father's long-term partner, Jason. You know, a lot of your fellow cadets have dropped out after their ride-alongs. He was right. I had noticed some of my peers were no longer in the program. I felt a knot in my stomach, but carried on. It was the end of the day, and we were parked at an intersection on the quiet side of town. A young teenager drove by us, and Jason immediately sped after him. What did he do? I asked, confused. He was speeding. I was taken aback. He didn't even have a radar on him, but I kept my mouth shut. The kid pulled over, Jason flashing his lights behind him. We walked up as he rolled down his window. "What's the problem, sir?" he quivered. "I got you going 15 over. I'm going to need to see your license." Jason paused. "What's that I smell? Marijuana? Have you been using any illicit drugs today?" The boy's eyes grew wide. "No, sir." Jason turned to me. "You smelled that, don't you?" I smelled nothing. "We were going to have to do a vehicle search. Please open your trunk." I followed him to the back of the car. He fidgeted with his body cam. "Shit, darn thing stopped working," he smirked. He pulled out a baggie of white powder and handed it to me. "Put it in the trunk, then I'll tell him we found it." "No, I'm not going to do that." We argued for 5 minutes before he stuck the baggie back in his pocket and walked back over. "You're free to go." He rolled his eyes and walked off. "Let's have a talk, son." He led me off to the side of the highway behind a cluster of trees. "Looks like you'll be dropping out, kid. It's not a good fit for you." I was speechless. I hoped you could prove yourself like your father did, but he's right. You're too sensitive. He held a gun to my chest. "Sorry, you're a liability now." Thanks for taking the time to listen to one of my videos. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.